We have 5 minutes before we start. Let me remind you about the phones and all the ringing or dingling or dangling devices need to be turned off, and also make sure that your computers are also turned off and that no extra sound being generated. contributing and listening to us online. Our session is called Recovering or Post-COVID Recovery of Tourism. Post-COVID. So this is the most responsible, we believe, or the most difficult part. The recovery, I mean, because the COVID seems to be crawling back and the tourism seems to be recovering slowly but steadily. And we need to understand where to start, where to make our first steps in this very new so-called normalcy, new normal reality. Let me introduce myself. I'm a marketing expert, consulting. I do different consulting works on tourism in Silk Road destinations. I come from Uzbekistan. I have an experience of tour operating work. For the last 15 years, I've been organizing tours, and at the same time, I was an expert for tourism-related issues. Before the pandemic, our sector was one of the most dynamically developing and growing in the world. We were really proud of that. Actually, the 2 years before the pandemic, 2018, 2019, demonstrated the peak of tourism for Central Asia. We had a lot of work done. The tourist flows have increased. Several presidents of our countries were personally supervising the development of tourism sector, but as sometimes it all stalled because of the pandemic, and now we need to understand how we could proceed further. And I would like to draw your attention to the fact, to the speakers who come from different sectors. And I would like to know what they think about this tourism sector and the tourism multiplier. So let us not just listen to what they have to say, but also let us have a discussion, because we are called a panel discussion. Any questions are welcome. You can ask your questions in the chat of the platform where you are watching the stream, whether it's Zoom participation or it's YouTube streaming or participation via Teams application. Do ask your questions. We'll try to answer all of them. However, during the presentation, during the speeches, and after every speech, we will be asking the questions to the speakers, and then only after we will have finalized all the presentations, we will move on to your questions. So please do listen to us, please do participate and send your questions. And we will start. Let me introduce our first speaker, Kairat Sadvakasov. He is not just a speaker, he also represents the institution who is the co-host and co-organizer of today's event, Kazakh Tourism. And by the way, I would like to thank our key organizer, the USAID project on competitiveness, trade, and job creation in Central Asia. Together with Kazakh Tourism, they are hosting and organizing this event. Kazakh Serekovich, if you let me introduce you briefly. Well, you are well known, you're famous for your very active position on promotion of Kazakhstan. We are all familiar with your beautiful videos that were issued lately, and actually the one of them, I believe it's a kind of benchmark one, is called Kazakhstan Very Nice. Let me just use this example as an illustration, as a showcase of what needs to be done during COVID, and Kairat and his team use the Aikido principle. Using the negative, maybe backfire, kind of negative attitude that were caused by both Borat movies, and they turned that very lemon, the very sour lemon, into the lemonade for Kazakhstan, having launched this campaign at the end of the last year. So Kairat, I am certain, will speak about his experience. Thank you very much, Mikhail. As a co-organizer, I would also like to welcome all the panelists and all the participants, all the audience. This is a very interesting hybrid format, truly. The trend was set long ago, and I think that hybrid format will continue to exist and will persist throughout our lives, and that's very interesting. Also, I would like to thank our partners, the CTJ project, the project with whom we have been collaborating for 18 to 24 months. And actually, in this very brief period of time, we have implemented 5 joint projects, and this is the 6th ones. We had a number of projects in the field of education, training, digitization, promotion of tourism facilitation, and I would like to thank the project for their collaboration. In fact, the competitiveness, trade, and jobs, they are created sometimes and thanks to tourism as well. You actually, Mikhail, were quite right. 2018, 2019 were the peak years for tourism of our sector. And in order to bring those flows back, we need to streamline regional collaboration. That is what I would like to talk about today. And please run my presentation. In the context of post-pandemic, it is important for the countries which have common borders to avoid export or import of coronavirus. That's what we're facing, right? And I will be talking about that later. So the countries are mostly concerned about those new security and safety protocols, and they're concerned whether they have been introduced and whether they're being respected well, they're being implemented well. If we look at non-hybrid formats, which take place mostly in CIS countries or in Europe as well, then as you can see, the regimes or the masks are not worn everywhere. We see sometimes the masks are being replaced by PCR or vaccination passports and certificates, but it all seems to be weakening, kind of fading out. And I think that tiny bit leads to a situation, the tiny bit improvement may lead us back to a situation that we had 6 months ago in our region. That is why it is absolutely crucial. It is imperative to make sure that we introduce certain safety and security protocols and that we respect them. There is a variety of protocols. There are recommendations of the World Tourism Organization. There are certain standards that are being introduced by the large chain hotels or international airlines, which have developed internally. And I think they are very nice. I mean, they're very good recommendations, and maybe we should follow the examples. But in our case, we try to follow the protocols which were developed by the WTTC, the Council on Tourism and Travel. We have joined the movement of safe travels. It is sort of a symbol, sort of a benchmark that you can receive as a tourism object to ensure comfort and safety of your travelers. So we heard here safe travels label, in fact, gives you certain confidence, give you certain trust. And the first recommendation would be from me, if the country suffers from some, chain hotels or some recognizable, or maybe there's some doubts if the companies are following those certain recommend, then you can follow those protocols, and then all the basis of those protocols come up with more in-depth recommendation for the sector as a whole. Well, today, under the project on economic corridor Almaty-Bishkek, similar standards are being developed for ourselves together with the expert of the World Tourism Organization. Actually, these days will be presented just in a few days' time, and we hopefully be able to share those standards with the colleagues from other countries and see how swiftly, how fast we can introduce those standards. Well, the protocols, the existing protocols, effective protocols, they affect all the sectors of tourism, starting from the amusement parks up to MICE tourism, adventure tourism. All of the protocols were developed considering of large global associations who focus or who specialize in these sectors. That is why I invite our colleagues, our neighbors, to start developing these protocols as soon as possible jointly. Secondly, simplified control, simplified procedure at the border control are important. We do have the recognition of PCR tests, at least with Kyrgyzstan. We do have mutual recognition of vaccination passports, but unfortunately, neighboring countries, if we look at the northern neighbor, then we're still unable to arrive to a clear procedure of border crossing onshore. In June, July, for instance, we resumed the flight, and it was very clear you had to have your PCR, and it was also clear about the vaccines and everything. But the most important tourists that arrived to our countries, judging by Isyk or judging by Tashkent, Samarkand routes, and so on, cross-border connections. So the most of the volume of tourists came via onshore, via land. And we, as a tourism operator, want to achieve a simplified procedure of border crossing. And I am convinced that expert of coronavirus that took place even via air, even with the HEPA filters on the airplanes, even with the scrupulous control of the airport, it still happens. People, when they travel by car, they interact with the others less. You sit shoulder to shoulder with a passenger in a 150 airplane. That's one story. Whilst you have a 4-seated car and then you make stops at just a couple of petrol stations on the way. That's a totally different story altogether. And when you cross the border on air, that's again a limited contact or nearly contactless procedure and process. That is why I believe that border crossing needs to be simplified to the maximum. I am convinced that we need to equalize overland to air transportation. And here I would like to speak about the new trend, the travel bubble, so-called the safety bubble that the countries tried to introduce and are still trying to introduce. We know that lots of efforts were made. There was a connection between New Zealand and Australia. Hong Kong and Singapore tried to organize this kind of travel bubbles streamlined, and we didn't speak about this initiative in our countries. We mentioned it once or twice, but I think it's something that we need to have by default, considering that we have so many overland connections or kind of online connections. We need to. There are about 50 different border crossing with our neighbors, and for that particular purpose, travel bubble need to be there by default. They need to be there by definition. We shouldn't. We shouldn't, considering the future pandemics, abstain from this initiative. We must have a very clear protocol of crossing the border, even in the circumstances of a crisis like this, like the crisis of COVID-19 pandemic. Tourism clearly, admittedly, suffered significantly in many countries. In Kazakhstan, the number of tourists have declined by 76%. We do need to understand that tourism creates jobs, and it was important for our economy to restore, to bring back tourism, to revive tourism. Actually, I should pay credits to the government of Kazakhstan because some unprecedented measures were taken, but mostly for air travels. And I believe that travel bubble needs to be organized and streamlined at the on-land border crossing. Also, I wish our countries had interagency commission, similar to one we had in Kazakhstan. It was a commission that controlled the arrival of foreigners to Kazakhstan, whether there were some international experts or maybe experts who are based in Kazakhstan or some other invited guests. Why couldn't we apply this kind of experience in our region for the organized tourism? It will be organized tourism in terms that they will be coming in with a PCR test, with a guide, guide with the vaccine and with vaccination passport. It will be easier to control. So I believe that we will eventually establish a body, an institution that will issue these kind of permits or these kind of approvals at the interregional level. On top or kind of in addition to interagency commission. So it needs interstate commission. So it needs to be kind of an interregional travel commission or tourism commission. So cross borders, we can see the Akjol border crossing, Korea border crossing. Actually, we have heavily invested in it. There are 8 lanes. The infrastructure has improved significantly. So now, for our countries to expedite the process in order to revive all the tourist flows, we will have to take care, kind of gentrify the border crossing on both sides. And of course, we will need some seasonal special border crossing. And with Kyrgyzstan, this is a very important issue. We've been discussing it for 8 years. We're trying to restore the seasonal crossing for popular on-foot routes, such as Almaty Issyk, for instance, so that mobile border crossing points could become operational as well. And the last thing that we could be speaking about is marketing. Well, unfortunately, outside of Karakol and Issyk, we are not familiar with many other things, but I'm sure that there are lots of beautiful locations outside of those areas. Or there is a triangle, Khiva, Bukhara, Samarkand. Again, we don't know much beyond that triangle about Uzbekistan, and I'm sure that similarly there is limited information about Kazakhstan as well. So I think a marketplace is an example that we're promoting in Kazakhstan at the moment. It is a state. It is when a state helps private businesses to promote guaranteed tours with a guaranteed output. Actually, it was a problem with Kazakhstan that you want to go somewhere, you start looking, and there is no guaranteed tours, scheduled, regular tours, because the business doesn't know whether the clients will come, whether the tourists will be there. That is why that gap that will has formed due to lack of advertising and businesses were reluctant to invest will be filled in by the state now. The state will fill in those shoes. And we could, in fact, apply this whole experience to Central Asia. And we, through this unified kind of one-stop marketplace, will be promoting all these different aspects, all these different tourism in our region. And actually, the state will be taking care of this expensive part of the business, of the tourism business, such as advertising and everything. Well, that is it from my presentation. I would like to thank you and thank our partners, the Competitiveness, Trade and Job Creation Project of the USAID. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kairat. What do you think, on top of interagency intergovernmental measures, needed to be undertaken in our states to stimulate the flow of transboundary tourists, like you call it? One of my familiar trainer, he says, well, coronavirus is going to pass, but tourism is eternal. It will stay with us. So in order to avoid focusing on exceptionally on the measures related to the virus, what could be done to use this infrastructure more effectively, efficiently? Similar to how the countries use the big venues after the big, such as Expo or the Olympic Games hosting. The whole infrastructure is usually stays at legacy. How could we use similarly the infrastructure that is being built at the moment? What do you think, from the marketing point of view, from the business point of view, what else could be done, could be added as a recommendation?
Well, you already voiced the answer in the market. It is the marketing and travel marketing is the area that is most difficult. If we're talking about some product marketing, there's always a sample that you can actually send out easily overseas or take it to an expo to let other people try it, be that food or some product or good or whatever, and they will know what we're talking about. Unfortunately, this sample in tourism is the most expensive one because organizing an info tour or bringing somebody, a blogger, a tour operator, whoever, is the most difficult part in the whole thing. So the government has to create the samples, simple things, similar to products on shelves in a supermarket or some test drives or sampling. And and the state should absorb this costs related to teaching people to travel around the region. Let's take a school tour, for example. During the Soviet time, we all know that the school tours or student tours were bringing up this tours of the future, where somebody, when he or she is a child, they travel around and they go to a neighboring region, for example, from Central Asia to the Baltics, to the Baltics republics or whatever. They had some impressions as a child, and then when they grow up, they want to go back to relive those impressions. So I think we have to start this school tours or exchange programs, not just to promote, but they have to take care of some organization. It was a very good experience during the Expo time when school tours were subsidized by the government, and we were able to bring a lot of people from rural areas to the center to show them something. So I think on the Central Asian region, something can be done. Something like that can be done. Dear colleagues, do you have any questions to Kairat? I have a question to Kairat. I would like to clarify about the internal domestic tourism. You said that 76%. There was a 76% reduction in tourism flow. The inflow of tourists. What's happening inside domestically? Did it give a push to development of internal tourism or domestic tourism? Of course it did. And in addition to these flows, it actually, apart from these flows, it also revealed all the problems that we have, such as environmental and so on and so forth. And I think it's a good thing that it happened, because it's better sooner than later that we were able to realize that we have problems in the culture of travel within the country. We all remember the Pink Lake, and we all know what's going on during the weekend, where we see from 8 to 10,000 visitors of the Kolsai Lake, and we see the load that the environment is experiencing right now, the ecology is experiencing right now, and it's pushing us. It's forcing us to actually reconsider the environmental problems, the recreational load, and to see whether we should expand these national parks and reserves. And this is what exactly we're dealing with right now, and that's what we're trying to do right now. Thank you. Thank you. All right, and we are gradually moving on to the next speaker, because Sem Kazbogarova, the founder and the director of a tour operator, domestic and incoming tourism in Kazakhstan and Central Asian countries, Skyway Travel. And now, Sem, we would like to hear from you about some practical and hands-on experience on how you work, and particularly on the domestic tourism in Kazakhstan. What has been done by tour operators over this period? Thank you, Mikhail, during the pandemic period. Thank you, Mikhail. Well, first of all, I'd like to greet and welcome all the speakers and participants of the forum. Yes, today I would like to, after a very interesting presentation by Kairat, I want to get down to the level of tour operators and to share my experience during the pandemic that we had, and to tell you what opportunities were revealed to tour operators during this time. Talk about the issue or the question, talk about the question whether there is a future of the operating business in Kazakhstan and in Central Asia in general. Could you please put my presentation on the screen? Thank you. This is not my presentation. That's not my presentation. So in the first part of my presentation, I would like to talk about what products tourists are looking for right now and they want to get right now, and how we as tour operators can satisfy these requests, what we have to offer at this time, particularly during the post-pandemic period. And of course, I would like to talk about the services for tours that we can provide so that to make sure that their travel and their tours are safe, how we can adhere to new norms that emerged and that keep evolving and changing all the time, and that are being implemented pretty much in all the countries of the world. Mikhail presented me very well, and I think I'm going to skip this part. I'm going to skip this slide. And we are working on internal and external tourism. We have an extensive experience in this. And during the pandemic, we were able to gain this great experience. We opened up new opportunities. And as I said in the first part of the presentation, I'd like to talk about the product that is asked by tourists most of the time and how we can respond to these challenges. It's a very relevant issue, highly discussed, and all our tourists want to see this social distance during their tours. They want to feel more isolated, and they ask a lot how many people are going to be in the hotel where we go to, or at the site where we're taking them, whether there are going to be a lot of tourists. So they're very concerned about that. And sanitary norms, sanitary safety norms, how we're going to take care of them if they get sick, if something happens while they're traveling. One more important trend is that tourists now would like to spend more time outdoors, particularly after the isolation period. A lot of people now want to go out uh, to the country, enjoy fresh air, and finally get out of this brick and mortar cities. And it's really important for them to go to places that have very few people. Now, we're seeing a very interesting trend. The world has become fragile, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And now we have it is now that we have the opportunity to discover new countries, see something new, experience some new emotions, because we truly don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And the most important trend that we're seeing, all countries of the world are seeing, that's domestic tourism. We're seeing more people wanting to learn more about their country, and the limitations that are enacted in terms of traveling to other countries, they contributed to a growth of demand for domestic tourism. People don't know if there are going to be new limitations on visiting certain countries tomorrow, so it is safer and it's more guaranteed that you can pick a domestic destination and to find out more about their own country. And how can we respond to these demands, requests, and what we did during the pandemic and what we have to offer out to our tourists right now based on our experience? The first thing that we did was we revisited the composition of groups. Now we're focusing more on individual groups. We're focusing more on mini group tours. That's one of the main trends right now. We're seeing more and more tours like that, and that we're offering. Another interesting product that we're testing right now, we're seeing a lot of luxury services such as private jets or helicopter tours or heli tours, and we can offer on a shared basis these tours and these services, and they're becoming more available. But at the same time, the tourists are traveling in very small groups. They're traveling safely, and they can visit places that are very remote and safe for visits. We are seeing more and more eco tours, and we're providing more eco tours and agricultural tourism tours, and they are the hype right now. And a lot of tourists, a lot of our people would like to run away from the city to spend more time outdoors, and that's the reason for that mainly is that they want to take care of their health, first of all. So we're seeing this trend for active tourism. Active tourism in the mountains, such as mountain hiking, is experiencing a boom right now. And this is another product that we're offering for our tourists as well. Um, the boom for weekend tour boom has been experienced by a lot of cities, and we're seeing a lot of new companies that are offering this new product, and people are willing and trying to leave and to go outside and spend a couple of hours, maybe a day, maybe 2 days somewhere outside. And that's a very strong trend that we're seeing right now. And of course, we couldn't ignore it. And we're offering more and more tours like that pretty much in all the cities of our country. Unfortunately, this disease affected a lot of people, and not everyone thought about uh, spending time uh, having a rest and then taking care of their health in the past. But a lot of people now are thinking about this kind of tours right now, and a lot of sanatoriums are offering providing this service. And people like activities, and these are some outdoor activities that we're offering, such as outdoor catering and different other types of outdoor activities that we have to offer. So what is going on in terms of the service? How can we provide this safe service? What I'd like to say is that the main focus of our work is to make sure that our clients, starting from promoting of our tour all the way to the actual buying of our tour and the travel, everything's done safely. We have a lot of platforms, a website, social media, and our tourists don't have to come to the office. They can just give us a call and use a video call and to find out all the information, pay for everything online, get all the documents via email, and they don't even have to print them out to be able to travel. We also pay close attention to the safety of the services that we provide. That includes transportation, safe placement, seat placement, disinfection within the transportation, disinfectants to make sure that tourists feel safe and comfortable. I think the word safe is overused right now. Every second word that we're hearing, safe. And this is a trend that we should try and make sure that our clients feel comfortable when they travel. And all the protective means such as masks and gloves. And last year, just to increase safety, we were using face shields as well, and head helmets. And we want to make sure that our tourists have the safe experience, but also comfortable experience. We're keeping an eye on the new rules that governments and authorities introducing for foreign tourists, that we're monitoring these travel requirements, and if there are any changes, in case of changes, we inform our clients. So we also monitor safety norms such as masks wearing, a number of people that could be in the group for a certain trip. And we respond to the sites that are open or closed or that are being shut down, and we try to find a replacement if I have to. We warn people about the need to be tested for PCR if they have to use certain applications or collect certain additional documents to be able to get access to a site. And given all these new limitations, the timing of our tours and trips is changing. And we also consider that when we organize tours, we keep an eye on this and track this, because we want to make sure that we have enough time to visit all locations. And if we don't, we alter the tour, alter the route. So that's briefly about our experience. What I'd like to say is that, of course, the pandemic poses new challenges to us and opens up new opportunities, and the whether the tour operating business is going to exist in Kazakhstan and Central Asia depends on us. Thank you very much. Thank you. You presented well the development of domestic tourism, specifically in Kazakhstan. And based on what we heard, the trends that we're seeing right now is that there are more people. There are more people outside of cities and in the mountains and outdoors than there are people in the cities. But because people want to stay safe, but yet travel. But the basis of all this is the willingness of people to actually look for adventures and travel. And people want to experience something new, and they want to go further and further away from home. So let me ask you a question. It's a two-sided question. Do you have something else, something to offer for the Central Asian tourism? Because you told us what you do on the domestic tourism in Kazakhstan, but you're positioning yourself as DMC for Central Asia. Have you had any experience of organizing tours, whether accepting and hosting Central Asian tourists in Kazakhstan or sending Kazakh tourists to neighboring countries? Let's call it a Central Asian bubble, as Kairat was referring to. And the second part of my question is more marketing based. What would you recommend to starting tour operators? Because the situation right now is that a lot of people leave the market. They just older tour operators using their approaches will not be able to stay afloat, and they will leave the market, opening up space for somebody new. So we're expecting to see an inflow of new companies in tourism. What would you recommend to a beginning tour operator in terms of how to position themselves for internal tourism or domestic tourism, position themselves as some local company that organizes some local services, or take Central Asian coverage, given the fact that Central Asia is actually based or is actually hoping to see more incoming tourism because we don't have sufficient resources, or we are not up to that economic level that would allow us to actually develop and continue to actively develop domestic tourism. Yes, and to answer your question, we did have experience during the pandemic. We hosted tourism from Central Asia and Kazakhstan, and we did send people to Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan. But of course, these flows are very small, and transboundary tourism has seen a revival, let's say, but we still don't feel it, and the flows are not so great. However, in general, if we talk about the experience, we have more or less similar situation in Central Asian countries, and in terms of the norms, requirements, and the activities and actions that are undertaken in these countries. And we're also monitoring all these novelties and all regulatory limitations. And we warn our tourists. We try to provide safe service for our clients. And there are not very many differences with this regards, but once again, on the transboundary tourism, we pretty much don't have any flows of tourists. As Kairat said, the most important limitation is the closure of land borders, border crossings. To answer your second question, yes, Mikhail, we're seeing a lot of new companies come into the market specializing on internal tourism. A lot of companies had to shut down, and unfortunately, that's a given. And for new operators, I would recommend to them to focus on what they know and do best, because there are a lot of limitations. There are a lot of changes, and the changes are happening very fast. And a big coverage when you're not ready to do it will harm you and will harm the clients, first of all. And so it is better to start with what you can do best, specialize on the local tourism, and then expand geography afterwards. Thank you. Colleagues, do you have any questions? All right, then let's move on. Thank you, SM, very much. So this is how any booking takes place. We determine a destination. We see that Kazakhstan is a very nice country, and then we start looking at the internet, looking for the information on the internet, looking for some practical and hands-on information from tour operators on their websites, or we choose a tour operator that we want to hire. And the third question is a hotel or tickets, all right, but we're going to get back to that a little later. Let me introduce Mislav Mikasek, the general manager of the Sheraton Hotel in Nur-Sultan. Mislav has an expansive experience in the hospitality business and the Marriott chain and outside of the Marriott chain. I counted up to 5 countries where you've worked occupying different positions. So you're familiar with the situation, not just in Kazakhstan, but globally as well. And I would like to focus not just on during what's happening during the COVID, but how the hospitality business should be in general, because your chain, your is a trendsetter and a setter of new standards for hospitality worldwide. So, Mislav, I'd like to turn the floor to you, and please, the floor is yours.
Safety, which was mentioned many times, and the standards and the quality that customers really want and expect when they come to hotels all over the world. And as well, some new operational priorities and impact on hospitality in the future. So first, let me start off where we found ourselves during the pandemic period. So as we all know, the borders got closed, the travel more or less stopped. And the focus for hospitality industry and for many hotels around the world, including for hotels in Central Asia, was to focus on domestic tourism, on domestic travel. We can see today, and especially during the last year, development of many new secondary and even tertiary domestic markets. Very good example, and I choose picture here of our beautiful Mangistau region here in Kazakhstan. Aktau is one of the success stories from 2020 and during 2021, when you show and when you can see how the new markets, secondary markets are being developed, thanks to the focus of governments, but as well hotels, to develop the local market, local leisure market, even local business market to some extent. Obviously, that was additionally fueled with the quarantine regulation of each country. So hotels had to adopt to the border closing, new quarantine regulation, and we have seen huge importance and a growth in domestic tourism. For hotels, that meant as well that we need to develop new products based on the requirements of the new markets. For many hotels, especially international brands, these were new markets that we are trying to tap into. So we had to adapt to their needs, to their preferences, and to their budgets. Regional travel is the second very important aspect, as already mentioned by Kairat and by my colleagues. That's the stage where we are now today, especially during 2021. Regional travel and the marketing within the close by regions became crucial. We see the flight lines, connection with the airplanes being firstly developed with the closest neighbors. We see the opportunity to have a similar vaccine or any kind of quarantine regulation best done between the regional partners. And as well, we have seen that we as a hotels, talking about the regional travel, when it comes to sales visits, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to marketing in language, Russian or Turkish or any language which is used in those regions, we really had to adapt and properly market to those new regional partners and players, and as well connecting with the tour operators and agents which are working domestically for domestic tourism and domestic market, but as well as for the regional market. Staycation in packages, this word was repeated in our industry numerous times during Corona. We became extremely creative from offering a staycation where you can only sleep, just stay in the hotel, stay in your room in a safe environment, to the packages where you and your family can go in a kind of a safe environment to the closest nearby destination and see attraction. This is a product that really became very important for the hotels over this period of time, especially to be very creative, to offer family trips, to offer extended family trips, packages for the children, more different offerings within the hotels. Many hotels transferred even their own spaces that previously were maybe meeting spaces or conference halls, suddenly a location where kids can have fun, or you can have kind of place where you can play video games with your closest ones. Resort stays and individual stay. This is something that we are seeing now, especially during 2021. As destination opened, we have more and more customers either going to some resort stays. They still want them to be safe, but they really want to relive that new normal, or old normal, I would say, where they're still surrounded by people, enjoying their time in the resort, and they want to go back how it was. But as well, we have the brand new markets, which was already shared with my colleagues, where people really want to travel in the nature, be with their closest ones, be in a safe environment. They really want to go off the beaten track, and they really want to be kind of in a, let's say, home feeling when they're staying with the people they know and where they feel safe. So that impacted the hotels in a way that we need to try to either cater as a resort, and you see the boom of the resorts and their success over past summer, but as well we need to, in some other markets, cater to those individual stays. New area of business travel and the new segments. They were always important, but especially over this period of time, the importance of sport groups, the importance of health groups is one of the areas where hotels are really focusing on, slightly less on convention conference business, obviously, due to all the restrictions. And we see the big change when it comes to business travel. We expect business travel to be impacted in the future for foreseeable time. Today, business travel is either short stays or even long stays. We see difference when it comes to flights intercontinentally as well, because people are traveling far less for business. So we are now focusing on the brand new segments more and more, which is family, domestic, certain sport groups, but as well working with the tour operators, which are offering some different packages, which are emerging in this post-COVID area. So how the hotels adapted in their procedures in this all new reality. So hotels were always clean. It's very strange now to say that we are cleaner than before, but I would say we went to the level of hyper cleanliness. Cleanliness and safety became something which is extremely important for our customers. We have emergence of the brand new technologies in the hotels, from the temperature measurement cameras as you walk in, to electric static sprayers, which are used in our hotels to make sure that you know that your room is sanitized for longer periods of time. Masks, social distancing, all this became a new norm where we operate our hotels, which customers are looking for before they book the hotel or during their stays. Meetings, as we see today, we have hybrid meetings, which is a brand new solution basically developed in our industry over the past 2 years. But as well, meetings, as they are coming back, people are looking at the conference room setups with the social distancing. Within our company, we are very happy that we can provide that. We have brand new setups where you are socially distanced. The food presentation, even now, is accepted in the forms of takeaways or takeaway buffets, or as well separate zones with separate areas where you take away your food or you can be serviced. Using of the gloves, using of the mask as you approach the buffets. And even, for the bigger conference, working and partnering with places where you can do COVID testing prior or after the meeting. Food and beverage, as we all know, had a huge, huge change over this period of time. When it comes to our industry, many years ago, when it comes to takeaways or ghost kitchens or deliveries, this is one area where the hotels really didn't focus as much. Now they became, in most of our markets, one very big staple when it comes to our way of operating. Obviously, having private meeting rooms, private dining rooms where you can really be together in the intimacy of your family is another area that we are focusing when it comes to food and beverage. Offering healthy options. We all now are considered about our health. What are we eating? Where are we eating? How are we eating? This now became a huge area of focus when it comes to food and beverage. And lastly, IT and growth of IT in the future. I think this is something that it's further propelled in our industry due to COVID. Mobile keys, for example. Ordering your room service through chat, basically having a contactless services. Now it's basically employed by most of our hotels, including in our own company, Marriott, with our Marriott Bonvoy apps. A lot of companies develop their own apps, which gives you an opportunity to pre-order the food, to be in your room, to use your mobile phone as a key, basically to avoid the contact with anybody, if you wish so, to a bare minimum. For example, as well, we have a development of entertainment in the rooms. Opportunity to connect Netflix or any kind of program that you used to enjoy during your isolation time. You can continue to watch them if you want to be in your room throughout your stays. So rooms are as well becoming a place of entertainment much more than before, because customers ask for it and they want to enjoy it to a certain extent. And explore the wilderness and explore the destinations where they're in. Robotics, as you can see by the picture there, will it come in our industry where it's already there? We do have hotels all over the world, especially even hotels during pandemic, But you're using such a small robots, which is basically robotic room service. You order what you would like to have on the phone, room service gets the message, they fill up your robot goes to your room and just delivers you what you like. So robotics to a certain extent, let's say in a budget hotels, future in some other hotels, will become more and more present in our hotels. So just to recap, what I wanted to share with you today, obviously, is the background. Business to be present and to be important. So if there are any questions from our audience or the guest speakers, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Спасибо, Мислав.
Thank you, Mislav. Well, I do have a question, but first I would like to share a story with you. Yesterday, I arrived and I checked into the hotel, this beautiful hotel, and this morning when I left and when I wanted to leave, do not clean my room, or do not replace my laundry. I didn't find that plaque. I didn't find it. Actually, I didn't find anything in paper, no pen. I think those are the new standards, going completely paperless, meaning going completely, contactless in that sense. So I didn't find that very important plaque, and maybe it was abolished along with other things that in pursuit of some safety measures. Moreover, I wanted to write it and hang it on a door, and I couldn't find a piece of paper on me. And the only piece of paper that I found was a PCR test. I mean, luckily it was a negative one. So on the reverse side, I said, do not replace my laundry, do not replace my linen, and I left it. I don't replace my bed. So I left it there. So naturally, the sustainability principle, especially during COVID and post-COVID, is key, and it seems to be a cross-cutting topic for tourism, because people seem to be paying more attention to sustainability or sustainable tourism. And I have a question to you, Mislav, to you as a representative of a Marriott chain or Hilton hotel. What measures are being undertaken to enhance and to respect sustainability? So it's probably not something that's related to your hotel or to your hotel rooms or to your hotel as a whole. But these are the things. So what can you tell us about the initiatives that you support to enhance and to endorse sustainability, and what could be borrowed as best practices by other hotels?
Explaining this on a global level with Marriott, sustainability is a crucial component of our success. Together with all the COVID restrictions for many years already, sustainability is being requested from our customers worldwide, and it's being expected that every company has its goals and targets. Marriott, until year 2025, already has targets set on a global level to reduce its water intensity by 15%, for example, to reduce its carbon footprint by 30%, to decrease its food wastage by 50%, and wastage overall by 45%. So these are all very challenging goals, and including electricity sustainability to reduce electricity consumption by 30%. These goals are tracked globally within all our hotels worldwide, and as well, we are very happy to share them, for example, as part of the sales meetings and conference meetings. How we do this? Obviously, what we say in our company, what gets measured gets done. For the past few years, Marriott has a portal called Mesh Portal, in which we are on a monthly basis inputting our impact when it comes to food wastage, when it comes to electricity usage, when it comes to water usage. And this is being tracked basically on a monthly basis. It's being tracked from the global office, and it's being tracked on an individual hotel level. And we are being challenged, obviously, to improve our results on a monthly and yearly basis when it comes to our impact. What I really am very proud of with our company, that we have really set targets, and we can really track them and measure them on a monthly basis, and keep ourselves and our owners and as well our management company accountable. Those same targets are part of our standards. If you want to open our hotels, we are expecting either with a franchise or a management contract that you have this in place and that you are tracking your success when it comes to sustainability. And for many of our loyal Bonvoy members, they're expecting this to be part of their stay. As you said, to make sure that you can recycle your towel, to make sure that you have a recycling bin in the room. Ecology is basically, together with COVID, becoming huge impact. and a huge focus with our customers and with our industry. So Mesh is one of the success stories and really good tools that we are using to measure ourselves and to, as well, according with our results, develop new processes or new capex investments such as solar power to reduce our results that we can track them on a monthly basis.
Спасибо. Спасибо большое. Какие-нибудь вопросы?
Thank you. Do you have any question for our speakers? No? May I? Yes, sure.
Thank you.
Obviously, hotels have always been clean, and I think the only difference is that you never announced it that loud, you know. You're always clean.
Now we are hyper clean. Now we are on top of that, what we were before.
I'm more interested in the backstage of what's happening now. I heard that head offices were monitoring how clean you were and how you managed to announce this, but how difficult it was to put everything in place and how they monitor it from your HQs in different parts of the world.
So basically how they monitor it, we have a monthly basically audits. We need to do our own self-audits with pictures where we are really providing all the backup to our companies of what we are doing and what is in place already in our hotel. Obviously, pictures can be staged. We all know that we're not doing that, but let's be honest, it's a possibility. So the other countermeasure to that, it's basically the feedback of our customers. We have not only Booking.com, we have our own guest voice surveys where our customers are giving us very honest feedback through their emails, directly through their emails, to say if the hotel was clean. And cleanliness is one of our major focuses as a measurement for all the hotels. Does the customer perceive your room clean? Does it perceive it safe? Does it perceive that everything was disinfected in a proper measure? Along with our internal procedure, obviously there's a financial component on top of that, which is, for example, we have electrostatic sprayers used all over our company and portfolio of hotels, where companies as well tracking, are we using them? Are we buying the disinfectants for them? Are we really buying those sprayers? Are they being used? And we are being tracked on that. So you cannot take a picture and say, well, I'm using it, but at the same time, you're not purchasing anything. So there's a few three different control elements that we use front and back of the house to make sure they're in line, from internal self-audits to honest customer feedback, which is being tracked, up to the point of financial impact to see, are you really investing in the cleanliness and the safety of your hotel?
Спасибо. Спасибо.
Well, thank you so much. We have nearly formed the product here on this side of the panel. Well, now we need to somehow deliver our message to the consumer, and let me introduce our next speaker, Asil Kozhakova, who is a professional marketing specialist, marketologist. She was the head of Expert 2017 promotion companies for 5 years. She's the author of Expert communication strategy. She's experienced in branding the country as a destination, as well as developing that very destination. She is also a founder of a service, communication service, promoting Kazakhstan. Asil, could you please now communicate? We are running out of time, short of time, but what would be the message? What would be the message that should be sent or should be distributed in tourism to enhance tourism development? Hello, colleagues. Hello, participants. Thank you for this invitation. I think that we already having a very comprehensive, very in-depth conversation, really. Well, I will summarize. It doesn't mean that we're dispersing, we're scattering yet, leaving it, but nevertheless, I would like to make a summary of what has been done, of what the promotion is needed for. Thank you so much. And if you could run my presentation.
What I'd like to do first is to ask everyone a question in order for us all to think about what's the key. Who is the key when we talk about any product, be that a tourism product or be that any other product, service, or whatever? We always look at the client first, right? We have to understand who this client is. And if we talk about a tourist, if we talk about a person who buys a traveling package, who wants to go somewhere, it's not about the money, it's not about the age or family status, it's not just about the number of children in the family, but first of all, what has changed and what we are paying attention to first of all, and this is what you were all referring to, these are values. This is the foundation that dictates the behavior of a client, why he's choosing and preferring a certain client, why he is looking inside, looking at his own concerns and feelings. If in the past we were looking at experiences and emotions from the outside, now we're starting to look inside, listening to ourselves. So this trend and the value change of a client in terms of the behavior change affected all the industries, not just tourism. And now we're going to talk about how that could affect tourism and when the client has changed. And as Sam did a great job explaining the products that exist and what has been done for the tourism, and all of that has been done based on the values that our tourist is experiencing. The growth of so-called creep economy, there's no proper translation in the Russian language, but it's pretty much what it means is all activities within and around the house, new values, a family, home, errands, children, etc. So if we look at Tugis, for example, what's very popular there is a service, find what's nearby. So everything's changing, and the behavioral habits are changing. People start looking for something that's nearby. And for tourism, it's typical for tours around the house. These are weekend tours or eco tours, family picnic tours, or something like that. And if you know, it's photo shoots are very popular. So you can go out on the weekend to make a photo shoot. These locations could be anything. It could be sunflower fields that are very popular, or some stone and rock jungles. And if you look at the media, what's being published in terms of these locations, we're seeing a lot of blogs about near Astana or references to Astana or Almaty, where we find a very good place for a photo session. So these are trends that are based near the house. And if we talk about promotion, if we look at Instagram, there is a very popular term, Instagram places or Instagram sites. So the search of those Instagram places or places that are near the house is based on the values that are dictated by changes in the behavior of the client. And moving gradually to the next trend, which is localization or the patriotism, if you want to. Localized content, product, personification are becoming more relevant than before and than in the past. And as a consequence, that is a growth of internal, domestic, and regional tourism. We're proud of what we have. If we go back to communications and what comes out of it, we'll see pictures that are showing it's better than in Switzerland. Here is better than Switzerland. If we look at Kazakhstan, for example. So this location looks like the American Grand Canyon. This location resembles the Alps. So this location resembles something else. So the growth of patriotism is strongly driving the love towards our own nature. We stayed at home. We started looking around to see what we have here around us. Another interesting trend is that we're seeing a reduction of loyalty to brand, and consumers are switching from brand to brand very quickly. How that affects and impacts the tourism. So if we talk about, we're talking about new companies emerging on the market, that it's not possible to actually work using the old ways, and these young guys and young businesses that are opened up for bus tours or individual tours, package tours, they're becoming more and more popular, and a consumer, a tourist, is switching between those two very quickly because the difference in price is very little. I'm not just talking about money price. I'm talking about the time value, because the time has become one of the key resources in this case. Going for lesser money, going somewhere closer, and it's easy to switch between these different choices. Another important conclusion is that the company, if we talk about international companies, they will be investing more into preservation or retaining the loyalty of customers rather than creativity and attraction of new and getting of new clients, because as we know, retaining a client is much cheaper than gaining new clients or buying new clients. And this trend that the clients are becoming less loyal towards a certain brand, provoking companies to challenge their marketing activities to retain their clients. We're seeing an increase in the online sales of travels. And how does it affect tourism for marketing? Let's call it destination. So that's a great opportunity for development of a digital communication channel, while in the past, we were seeing a channel marketing more active. so people working through tour agents, tour operators, any location can have direct access. And people are not looking for an agency. People are looking or an agent. People are looking for a locality of where to go, and then for that locality, they pick a tour operator. Not gonna talk about safety. It's already been mentioned on a number of occasions. The only thing I'd like to draw your attention to, and that's comes out from the previous trend from online and digitalization, is that safety is important. Digital safety is important. The digital safety, we'll see, for example, yesterday, Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp crashed. And at some point, and we were helpless right away with no hands, no head, no link to anything. What happens if our data goes somewhere? Because everyone's online and everything's sold and bought online. And the more data we have in the open access, the more the clients are concerned about their personal information getting to wrong hands. Sustainability, I'm not going to talk about that because we already talked about it a lot today. And the client has become global. What does it mean? What I would, more educated, I would say, because people started comparing, let's say, this is how it's done in this country, and this is how it's done in another country. In the past, we didn't have to do that. And now we're comparing prices, we're comparing infrastructure and other capabilities and creativity and advertisements as well. So we have to keep that in mind. We all learned how to work online, even those who were offline before are moving towards online, and that led to the fact that clients have become global. So how do these changes in values in terms of the behavior of the client impact the promotion and effect? How do we promote our products? Digital communications, that's clear, but I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that it's not just digital communications, but multi-channel communications, the growth of digital content. We didn't talk about that today, but I think it's obvious. That's a growth of TikTok that's become the most downloadable application. For marketing of destinations, that's a very good channel that we can use to promote these destinations, because this is where the new trendsetters are. This is where the youth is that we used to ignore in the past because the trips were very expensive. Now, because the trips are cheaper, because they're closer to home, and the client changed in terms of the age. And the age principle implies different communication channels, including TikTok, Instagram, and others. If we talk about activities, different exhibitions, different forums, not just about tourism, but that's a virtual hybrid format for these events. And for example, this event today is a very good example of that this trend will be preserved, will continue to grow, and will continue to prosper. Flexibility and speed. Communications have to be quick. And my favorite principle, if you're not quick, you're dead. It works very well now. We have to respond to everything that is going on and be flexible in terms of the change of the values and behaviors of the client. Creativity, yes, creativity stays, but it has to be sustainable, and you cannot lie anymore. Race discrimination, gender discrimination, or whatever. These age-based subjects don't work anymore. We have to be frank. We have to be sustainable and ecological. Emotions. Everything that can evoke emotions, all communications that evoke emotions, they become relevant because, let's go back to values. It's family, children, care, and everything that evokes such emotions will resonate in the hearts of the clients. And in terms of the change of the behavior of consumers, and led to key-based analytics. In the past, we ignored, ignored data-driven marketing. At least in our countries, that's the marketing that's based on large data and on changes such as targeting advertisement, context-based advertisement. This type of marketing is becoming more and more relevant. The growth of new media. I'm not going to stop at that, because I'm not going to dwell on that because it's already been mentioned. That's pretty straightforward. New media habits of consumers over the isolation period in a lot of countries and globally. The statistics shows that up to 33%, there was an up to 33% increase in the visits to news portals because people started looking for reliable and verified data and facts. Despite the fact that we saw a lot of fake news being distributed on WhatsApp, etc., but the majority of people are looking for reliable information. So when we talk about tourism, the communicator, those who promote destinations, they have to work with reliable, tested news portals to be able to provide reliable information and trusted information. That's very important. As for bloggers, the era of bloggers or 1 million bloggers is becoming a history. And now, particularly in tourism, it's very important to have microbloggers that have from 1,000 to 10,000 subscribers or followers. At least for Central Asia, that's a very good indicator, and different influencers. So the tours that you were talking about, Kairat, and if we look at the communication channel, that could be TikTok. If we talk about who these influencers are, that could be the youth or young people, and they evoke more trust than those mastodons who people don't trust anymore, particularly during the isolation period. And change of this working habits change the. Yeah, you ran out of time. Yes. So I think that it's clear to everyone that we have to work not just to the outside, but also within inside. And hashtag safety, COVID-free, vaccinated travel, and so on and so forth. These hashtags become one of the components of communications. This is it for me. I'm open for questions. Thank you very much. Estelle, thank you very much. You really talked about trans and very quickly, but very in great detail. But still, it would very nice. Could you give us a specific example of Kazakhstan or maybe in Central Asia of some user experience, modern or contemporary user experience within this framework of this economy of impressions? Could you give us an example of a company or a website? And it would be nice to have this example from tourism. Somebody who is using all of this and somebody who is doing business. I am not going to give you the name of the company. I'm going to talk about the starting businesses, the guys that, well, it's a trend of ecotourism. If we look at that, we know glampings, which are actively developing around these two capital cities all around Almaty and Nur-Sultan, Astana. And these guys, I'm not going to say that all the elements are going to be taken care of because putting everything into one trip is very difficult. But they're using all the principles that are important for the clients right now. And the need of glamping has grown because of the needs of the clients have changed, the tourists have changed, not just camping or camping in cool camps or using luxury camp, because we're talking about shared economy, but still in the tents, right? This is what people would like to have, but they want good conditions, they want to be nearby, they want to travel with families, they want to visit those Instagram places and sites, they want to spend little on this, and they want it now. So the speed is very important. And the guys are using all this. If we're talking about glampings, for example, they're actively promoting this and actively using this in their communications. And I think they're doing well at that. That's a great example, colleagues. Have you ever heard this word, glamping, up until last year? I found out that I came across that word last year. Maybe the concept existed before, but we learned about it in the second half of last year, really. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Just like to take this opportunity to use the floor to stay, since we're together with Estelle on this panel together, and I would like to talk to Estelle about branding. Based on what you're saying, that the loyalty is to brands is going down, everything's changing very quickly. TikTok, it's very difficult to concentrate on something specific. How does it affect the country branding? Should we invest this colossal money into this classical understanding of the country branding now that we're seeing these trends happening? Maybe we should change something. Maybe we should switch to some shorter-term campaigns rather than implementing this long-term, very expensive campaign. And another thing is, should we consider about this unified brand for this Central Asian region, be that a Stan or as a suffix or Silk Road or something like that? That's a very good question. Let's separate it into two parts. You're asking, should we promote a country brand? Let's talk about Kazakhstan. My answer is yes. You should. The question how is a different question. Expensive due to some large large investments into airtime. That's one way. If we talk about influencer marketing, if we talk about other channels or new communication channels, expensive communication channels, that's a different way. And if you remember, I talked about multi-channels. We have to have many channels. Let's call it integrated communications. And this is a third way, but this is a basic way. And so to answer your question, yes, we should. In the question of channels of communications, that should be revisited. And it's clear that we can do everything with a lot of money, but any fool can do it if they have a lot of money. What's PR in principle? What's communications? When I say I'm a good person, I'm good. That's advertising. When somebody is saying she is good, that's PR. So we have to make sure that Kazakhstan, for example, is referred to by other people, by other influencers, or other people and other influencers talk about Kazakhstan. That's different communication channels. If we talk about, and now I didn't talk about this during my presentation, but if we talk about media habits of consumers, they've also changed. People's moved to online. People are on the internet now. So TV advertising went down, although TV program viewing went up in terms of news programs, etc. But trust towards advertisement and promotions went down. It's online. It's moved online, and the native format doesn't work anymore because the client has become global and smart. You have to change the channel. The question how? We can spend a long time discussing it. You just have to revisit it and reconsider it. And the second question about the unified brand for the whole region. It's a very good question. There are pros and cons to it, but just off the top of my head, I'm going to list some pros and cons. The pros are more resources, more effort, and when we work jointly, it's always it gives better results always. From the cons, out of cons, there is a risk of having different people pulling in, things in different directions, and you may end up having not a very good result. And it's not about just communications. If we have a common product, a so-called Silk Road, it will gradually become a promotion. So you have the product first, and then you promote it. But if we promote something without having a product, this effect of being pulled in different directions may occur. Thank you very much. This is it's very good food for thought, especially about this being pulled in different directions. But really, moving from the product and always adjusting your communication channels and modes of communication, then going back to the product. I think this is the cycle that the Central Asian destinations should use if we want to create something in common, and we want to, and that's needed. And the most important answer to the question is how. Thank you, Asel. And now, with a special feeling, I'd like to introduce the next speaker. And Asel said that now. This channel-based marketing, we're moving towards local marketing, and people don't want to read about places where they're going to from some state portal pages or tourism administration, even tour operators. They want to go in and find information about a site that's written by people from that place. There's a principle like that. So Gulmira Primova from Kyrgyzstan, and by the way, thanks to you, our panel has become international or regional, let's say. So Gulmira is an owner of a guest house in a unique place in Kyrgyzstan. It's a valley, even though the perception is always the mountains. And of course, it's a mountain valley, Zhergalan Valley. And I've heard about it last year for the first time, I think, when we considered where to go to ski, and I think you have best places for free ride. And we're going to learn more from your presentation, but what I'd also like to say is that Gulmira is the founder and the chairwoman of an association that's called Zhergalan Valley Destination as well. So it's not just the local service providers. Guest house is a warmest and highly demanded place in tourism, but it's so-called sustainable or ecotourism or agritourism. But as we all understand now, the current trends push people out of towns to the countryside. So tell us what's going on. And as a chairwoman of this non-government association, what's going on there? It's very interesting to know.
Thank you, Mikhail. Good day, all the participants. Good day, all those who are listening to us or watching us online. I came from Kyrgyzstan, from Mount nearest area located at the east of Kyrgyzstan in East Sukul region, Zhirgalan Valley. Can you please run my presentation? Our destination is located 60 kilometers away from the city of Karakol, and it was established in 2016. In 2015, we won a prize from a USAID BGI project on development of new destination, and since then we began developing as a tourism destination. And in 2016, we registered our public association called the Zhirgalan Valley Destination that encompasses or brings together 5 guest houses. So we are a very small village. In fact, it's a mining town that after the collapse of the Soviet Union has deteriorated as well, has decayed, and the life has stopped. And many residents moved to Karakol or other cities in Kyrgyzstan, or maybe they changed their locations and work in different places. And we had about 1,000 people living there, which is 4,000 fewer than we had a few years ago. And actually, we moved there with our family, and we are the fans of skiing, skating, and paragliding, and mountain tourism. And we actually decided to bring new life. So, following the work with the BGI project of the USAID that was picked up by another project, CTG, with the help of these 2 projects, we had a number of trainings for guest house owners on hospitality, on food and beverages, on training of mountain guides and tour guides. We had some trainings on avalanche safety and security. And in fact, we did have an opportunity, we received an opportunity to participate in grand tourism fairs that are hosted in Moscow, Berlin, Almaty, and Tashkent. Well, the previous speakers, they spoke, they're more experienced and they're kind of more large scale, but, and I find it a bit difficult to speak after all of you, because we're just a small, a tiny, newly emerging, newly developing destination. But we've been promoting ourselves with the help of social media, because as Asena has mentioned before, everyone is online, everyone is internet and Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and just likewise, with the help of our partners, Kyrgyz tour operators such as Aksai Travel, Novi Nomad Travel, DCIT, and we've been promoting our activities. And also we have the word of the mouth sort of advertising or even PR for our destination. Before the pandemic, as the previous speaker said, in 18 and 19, we had the peaking tourists, peaking number of tourists, and with the help of these projects, BGI and CTG, we were able to invite some world-famous bloggers. We had actually many of those really speaking about us, talking about us and their blogs. And actually, the number of tourists was overwhelming. We couldn't digest all that. And sometimes we had to go to the next, guest house. And, the guest house, but we have an empty bed. Could you please let our guests stay for a night only? And it was, crazy like that. During the pandemic, to sustain our business and to support the staff of the guest house, we had to revise our policies. The foreign tourists stopped coming, and we had to refocus to work with the local tourism. Our destination is located at 2,300 meters above sea level. It is not a high mountains area. It's kind of mid-level hills. The nature is very beautiful, very picturesque. It's all green at all times, at all seasons. And we began developing a new product called the kumis therapy, a horse mare's milk therapy. And the pandemic has revealed and kind of redirected people toward their own health. And traditionally, we have always had the kumis or mare's milk therapy, and we've been using it. It's a traditional historical thing for us, and that is something that helped us. We were surprised that after the relaxation of quarantine and lockdown measures, we were surprised to see the influx of tourists from Karakol, Bishkek, or large-scale cities of Kyrgyzstan. The people began moving closer to nature. So to maintain our work, we have provided all guest houses with all the safety and security measures. We have equipped them with disinfectants. We printed some banners for them. We procured the scanners, temperature scanners, thermometers, and we train people to work in the new normal conditions. We kind of train them, do the disinfection and cleaning the hotel rooms. We have developed the new tourism products to attract the new categories of data. So for that, with our partner, the designer Asil Kalkanova, who is reviving or giving a new impetus to traditional clothing, traditional folk clothing, we organized a weekend day tour so that the guests who came to us who could put on some traditional folk dress, winter or summer, depending on the season, and get a photo in that dress. That was a very popular campaign, and actually this year we had 7 or 6, flows like that, influx like that. People are coming from Bishkek, particularly for this very campaign. Well, winter tourism in Kazakhstan is not represented widely. Well, Ishikul is seen mostly, perceived mostly as the summer or beach tourism, but we do have some beautiful mountains where free riding is evolving, developing. There are a limited number of free riders in Kyrgyzstan, I mean, Kyrgyz-born free riders. So in order to attract new tourism, we began advertising or the new product called the walks on snow walks, snow steps. And I mean, even if you don't ride, if you don't ski, you can still walk on those. You can still use those special shoes and enjoy the nature and the crisp air. Well, now I have prepared a short video, and to introduce you to the beauty of our destination, I would like to show you a short and brief video that I have prepared. Thank you. Please run the video. Thank you. Thank you. Bravo. Really very Instagrammable video, absolutely, and the location. And it is obviously sustainable because the location that where you are based is very remote from everything else. And actually, you can see that everything is done there is done by the residents of Zhurgali village. Well, I have a question to you. I am convinced that development of tourism must be supported, must be encouraged, not only by the state, I mean, which should be there by default, not only by the business itself, not only by the tour operator or touristic services suppliers, but I believe that the role of associations is crucial. You represent one of the such associations. Yes, we do seem to be having new, emerging, different thematic associations. Earlier we had one or two associations, but now we have more and maybe more niche or sectoral associations. But do you believe that development of these kind of associations, like micro association like yours, limited by a location on maybe at the Republican level, the country level, maybe district level association, province level association, do such associations need to communicate with each other and collaborate with each other, including the Central Asian realm, Or do you think the association's main objective, main goal is to develop, their members, to support, to encourage their members, to facilitate their business development, to protect their businesses, or to lobby their interests, and that kind of intra-association collaboration is not needed? Which of these ways do you think is more necessary for us to develop? We have a forum, that's Central Asia Trade Forum, so let us now speak about Central Asian product. Thank you. That is a very interesting question and an important one as well. I do believe that the tourism will be community-driven, community-based in the future. And when I say community, it is a local. As the previous speakers, you spoke about kind of media or large-scale communities, but we are mostly focused on some, midlife, a kind of mid-sized pocket tourists, local tourists who knows not much about the area, and that is why the connection between the communities of Central Asia is important, is critical, because while talking to them, while speaking to them, while interacting with them, we can learn some best practices, we can learn some new lessons. While Mislav is representative of a hotel, of a grand, international global chain hotels, and everybody knows about that not many know about our small destinations, but actually they're equally interesting, and we would like to tell our tourists and to tell them, okay, here's our destination, but there is another destination in Uzbekistan where they have certain crafts or where they have certain specialty, and that will be more inexpensive compared to Bukhara, Samarkand trips. Same can be said about Kazakhstan. Many tourists, we are 45 kilometers from Karkara border crossing. And as Khairat in his presentation mentioned, this on-foot or kind of on-land border crossing is important, and actually a simplified border crossing procedures is crucial. We did have lots of application when we had, in emails, there were lots of people from Kazakhstan willing and wishing to visit us, but those barriers impeded them from doing so. And actually, it's a 2.5 hours drive from Almaty to Zhirgalan, and it's easier than going via Bishkek. And we have Charin canyons, which are not very far from us as well. And our tourists, I'm sure, would love to visit Charin canyons. And it will be interesting for us to see how local tourism is developing and evolving, which placation destination we could use as a reference for the future tours, for the future. I believe that this community ties and connections and communications between Central Asian communities is very, very important. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, actually, I was thinking about that, and why am I calling it association? Association is kind of a formal shell, right? Formal title. But you're talking about communities. I believe, yes, that's true, because the communities play a crucial role, and maybe it's not well understood. But you have used it and you have explained it in a very clear language, and I think it's a very interesting and vivid example. Do you have any questions to our speakers? No, I don't have any questions, but I wish you all the best, all the successes. You seem to have an excellent project. Yes, it's a CBT, community-based tourism. It's probably the future of tourism, and I'm sure that most of the tourist flows will be going there. I think we should collaborate. I think we should exchange contacts and stay in touch, and thank you. All the best. Yeah, thank you. And I would like to invite you. We do work 24/7, all 4 seasons in a year. In winter, it will be free ride. In summer, it will be trekking, and the horse mare's milk therapy. Thank you very much, Gulmira. Well, we seem to have visited all the places, including the very interesting location of Zhirgalan Valley. Now the time has come for a speaker who is responsible for the starting point of a travel, of a trip. Well, visa is no longer a problem for Central Asian countries, for Central Asian residents. I mean, most of the cases, most of the countries. And what else do you have? What else is other than consulate that the tourists visit? And that's, of course, the airplane. When you get on board of an airplane, especially a national carrier, then you're legally inside that country, considered to be inside that country. I don't know, it's kind of, there is some discussion about that. Islam Sikirbayev, the director of the global sales of Air Astana, a company Islam. Good day, thank you. Yes, it's such a beautiful platform, really. I found it exciting, where experts from different sectors speak about their experiences, the trends that they see, that they observe. And I'm happy that ourselves as air company are here, because we do understand that transport is core, is kind of core impetus and core stimuli for development of tourism that's rich for different locations, and it will remain to be interesting for different types, different categories of tourists. And today's speakers who spoke about different new evolving and emerging trends or types of tourism are correct, and I believe that online participants are watching and tracking and actually trying to find some locations and how to get there to those locations. And we do understand that these trends are being detected, are being tested in our airline companies. I will be speaking about statistics, in fact, and I will be speaking about statistics that proves the recovery of Central Asian region after the pandemic. Tourism is a sector of economy that is affected by almost, no, but nearly everything, and from one year to another. The tourism is a sector that demonstrates that it has to prove its being dynamic or it's being adaptive, and actually also demonstrates how marketplaces adapt and cope with new challenges. Now, I would like to run my presentation, and through this presentation, I would like to make a brief introduction of the company and what we have done and how we represent ourselves after the 2 years pandemic. Well, you do know that the Air Astana brand was known in the region since 2002, and during that period of time, lots of dynamic and interesting activities that have been done by Air Company, starting from expanding the fleet, introducing new comfortable bus airplanes such as Airbus, Boeing, and Embraer, and actually up to expanding or extending geographical coverage and including locations such as Moscow, Dubai, Frankfurt, as well as developing new direction, new destinations for inbound as well as outbound tourism. And it all leads to a situation that the air company has a clear message for our tourists, for our partners, for our clients. Traveling with Air Astana. We are the air company that pursues high standards of safety and security, and we are also committed to provision of high quality products. And that is why our clients, our partners can feel safe and can feel confident that they will receive not only a safe trip from A to B, but that they will also will witness that flying with Air Astana across Central Asia is convenient, is comfortable, and is good. And actually, it gives you the first impression about the air travel, because air company is not just airplane. We are, as Air Astana, we're a global ambassador of Kazakhstan. We tell about the country, such as Kazakhstan. We tell about the picturesque locations, destinations. And that is why all of these cornerstone main measures, they remain to be our main thesis and principles, even post-pandemic. After the 2021, we can see that the ranking of air company on compliance, on conformity to all safety and security measures is key. It's been mentioned that import and export of COVID is obvious, and that is why many countries are working to reduce such risks. And because air transportation was the first means of transportation that was resumed after the COVID, and being the first pilot kind of means of transportation, a lot of attention was paid to that, and especially to the protocols that were devised for us to follow to be able to revive, to restore flights. Actually, recently we received the 5-star in Skytrax COVID-19 ranking. For many, Skytrax is one of the platforms that is considered to be as an Oscar, Academy Award amongst all the other ranking agencies. So a company that receives the Skytrax ranking is the company that has certified quality of its service. Last week, Skytrax has awarded us with the Best Air Company in Central Asia 2021 title. This is not the first achievement of ours. In 9 years, for 9 years, we were the best air company in India and in Central Asia. We were also the best service on board air company in Central Asia and India. And actually, many speakers mentioned today that it's important, it's crucial, absolutely, to understand our client, the client experience, the client expectations, and how and whether the company is coping, is matching that experience, that expectations. And that is why at a platform similar to TripAdvisor, we also are the company that collects feedback from our clients. We look and we see, we make corrections, we introduce certain modifications to our service based on our clients' recommendations. Well, in 2019, we have transported about 5 million passengers. In 2021 were very difficult years, were hard years, because in 2020, from March to May, any air transportation was stopped. Starting from May, internal flights were resumed. Even now, actually, the number of flights is still not the same as the number of flights before the pandemic. Before the pandemic, actually, we had 64 destinations, inbound, outbound, but now we have only 32 international destinations. At the beginning of 20, we had the fewer number of such destinations, but we see that the state is opening up, the government is opening up, and as a result, the protocols are being, actually what contributes to that is the number of protocols, vaccination rates are being picking up, and we see the commitment of the state, the government, that not to be isolated from the globe, from the world. That is why we need to create all the conditions to restore the business. That is why at this moment, let me speak about the focus of the air company 2021.
So in 2021, we were looking at developing charter flights for international destinations because we know that this number of passengers, due to business reasons, went down. Countries like Southeast Asia, most of their hubs, such as Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur, are still shut down because they're attracting people from different countries with different vaccination rates. And so a lot of countries like that shut down their flights. And we see that tourism destinations, such as Maldives or Egypt, such as Sharm el-Sheikh, we're actively discussing flights to Phuket right now. These cities are open for tourists with certain limitations, with certain protocols, of course. So we also pay close attention to that and to make sure that passengers can be safely transported directly to the destination without going via a certain hub. So for January and August, we already transported over 1.5 million people of passengers. For the statistics is the overall total number of passengers. If we look at domestic markets in other countries, it was up to 43% decrease, while in Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan saw the increase of domestic flights of 80%. So the dynamics of internal market in Kazakhstan was very positive, and that contributed to development of our local low-cost directions fly Aristan that opened up a lot of flights beginning with the pandemic. We know that the first commercial flights were launched in 2020, and there were grand plans, and we're achieving those. We have about 11 or 12 destinations that nobody provided services to, and that gives an additional impetus for development of local tourism. We see the airports of Kazakhstan gaining an increased number of passengers because of this new Fly Aristana flights. If we look overall for the airports in Kazakhstan, the influx was 113% through Fly Aristan between January and May of this year, or January and summer of this year. And the trends that we're talking about today, yes, mandatory safety, passengers want to get reliable information, what's needed from them, and it's important to understand that airlines have provided full spectrum of services, safety services, and our planes are equipped with HEPA filters that retain a large number of particles. So mobility and digitalization. IATA Travel Pass is being tested right now that allows passengers to create their own digital code where you can see certified labs for PCR tests. You can see criteria for entering the country that allows a passenger using one application to understand what's required of them, how they can travel. Because a lot of countries already have a clear policy as to who they're willing to see in their countries: vaccinated passengers, PCR test requirements, etc. That's important to create digital applications so to make sure that passengers know. So everything should become digital. And I would also like to say that we have running a campaign right now that will attract attention to travel into Kazakhstan. That's Airbus A321LR introduction. That's a new plane. That's a new type, a new era of travel. So this plane is so popular that a lot of tourist destinations are, we actually take people to a lot of tourist destinations using this airplane, and we have a very good feedback from this plane, and people have very good impression of Kazakhstan when they see this plane and travel with this plane. Please run the video. Thank you.
прибыть на борт авиакомпании Air Astana. Наш самолет влетел в зону ночных снов. Пожалуйста, располагайтесь поудобнее, чтобы продолжить путь, наслаждаясь каждой минутой полета. А мы позаботимся, чтобы вы отлично отдохнули и набрали сил для новых открытий. Ведь сны – это тоже часть путешествия.
Airbus Neo. Long Range.
Thank you for viewing the video. So just to sum up, the transportation and air flights, air transportation is safe. The airline keeps developing its additional digital services. Our passengers can have a great choice of how they want to plan their flight. They can choose different types of products. They can plan their trip based on their plans, choose seats by additional baggage pieces. They can upgrade to business class. So we will be happy to give this impetus to development of domestic and international tourism, and we'll be happy to see further initiatives of Kazakhstan tourism in creating a hub, a Central Asian hub, to make sure that our travelers may not limit their travels just by one destination, but can use and can travel to different destinations. Thank you, Islam. I would like to add, based on my experience, I was flying Air Astana from Moscow, and what I really liked was that a lot of airlines are saving, and they stopped providing any additional services or masks or sleepers, or especially in the economy class. But Air Astana keeps on doing this, but it's all in natural material bags, and ear headsets are packed in a paper bag that says that you can reuse them. You don't have to throw everything away. So the idea is to promote this environment, the clear or eco approach, and that looked very presentable for the company, not to say no, but become the company that focuses on these values. Thank you very much. The question to you, so all these procedures that we have to go through to be able to fly, like pre-flight procedures, all additional procedures and checks related to COVID, they don't make our passengers happier, even those who finally able to get out and fly somewhere. Is there an indicator how to measure the happiness, the level of happiness of a client that your company may use, and what would you be willing to share in terms of how to make the passenger not just more satisfied in terms of the comfort, or with the comfort and price, of course, but happier in general during the period while these passengers are on board of your flight? Yes, Mikhail, speakers are talking not just about travelers, but we're also travelers ourselves. And even in our daily life, we are consumers. We're receiving some services. And it's always clear that when we have some negative impression or negative experience, we want to share it. If we get something new, we still do that, but rarer. And we have to create a platform for that to make sure that we can convey this to people. So you were right in saying that. And I also referred to that before, that we're working to make sure that TripAdvisor or other things, or other platforms where we would use them to collect impressions on our flight. Then we have a customer service that collects additional information on how every flight went. And you can run a poll, a survey on every flight where passengers can share their experience and impressions. And it's this trend that's starting from in the recent years. It was important to understand the expectations of passengers. So there were a lot of metrics that were introduced in the company, such as Net Promoter Score or customer experience score. So these elements are discussed at a high level, they're presented at a high level. We conduct focus groups where our passengers are invited to attend and to discuss certain subject matters, such as whether you were satisfied with the flight, with the quality of the flight, where you saw, did we comply with all the safety protocols related to COVID-19. So this is a gradual work, a step-by-step work. This is an ongoing process. And yes, the airline and the new products that we come up with are based on what our passengers tell us. We make sometimes we make exact changes. Like you said, airlines are trying to say, but we know this is an important indicator, the sensibility and tactability of the tangibility of the service. So we continue to invest into the services, but using new rules because a lot of things are regulated by sanitary norms right now. So I'm really happy that you appreciated these things, and we are happy to receive feedback from our customers, and we keep on working on this. Thank you. So you're not just listening, but you're hearing us as well. Yes. Do you colleagues have any questions to Islam? All right. If there are no questions, we're moving on to a very important part of our meeting, but unfortunately, we have very little time left. So we will be able to consider only 2 questions out of those that were posed. And all these questions, I received all these questions here, and I have to choose only 2 questions, but I suggest that we get engaged, and I suggest, based on my experience, that is possible, and we will have this recording of this panel in YouTube, and if for those who ask questions, but the questions didn't get answered, re-ask these questions again under that post. And speakers, make sure you go and visit the YouTube channel and answer those questions. And by doing this, we will actually support this video and leave this interesting content under that video on YouTube. So let me ask a question, and I just received it from Timur Dosungaliev. So I found it very interesting because he wrote a lot of interesting questions, Timur, and but I would like to raise this particular one to read it. So the pandemic and explosive growth of internal and domestic tourism revealed serious problems with the quality of staff, which remain to be better and to desire to be better. And what is required for training of people that provide tourism services in general? Let's just not address this question to Kazakhstan, but in general for the region. Who would be like to answer this very sensitive question? So education, we're all look at education. So the service is education, and we have people from the hospitality business, and I used to work in a hotel. So the majority, most of the responsibility is the responsibility of businesses. There are no problems with airlines. There are no problems with big chain hotels, but there are problems in terms of safety, and everything needs to be taught and trained on. But big businesses are doing well with that regards. But the question that Timur is raising is pertains more to regional nature, really, because all these questions that were revealed during the pandemic, they pertain to national parks, to smaller accommodations, transportations that are all local in the region, very far away from the capital city or from Almaty or some other large Western cities with well-developed businesses, etc. And this gap is breached by the government. One of the examples is the Mangistau Oblast, and you know that there's a very big cluster that's under development there. There is a big 500-bed hotel that's just been opened. They're developing villas and golf courses, etc. There's always been a question there, and Mislav, correct me if I'm wrong, because he spent a lot of time there, because it's a region with very few people, very little population. There's a big outflow of young people that are seeking to get education and other places. So who would work in the service business there? So we train about 1,000 people together with the Air Astana. We're training people of the Aktau Airport or employees of Aktau Airport. We're training lifeguards to work in pools, and we're training other people. We're willing to scale up that experience in other regions. And knowing Timor, I think the question is what's going on in national parks. It's a big, serious question of service. So this is not our responsibility as Kazakh Tourism, as the Ministry of Culture and Sports. We work with the Ministry of Environment to bring serious investors there who would provide some infrastructure there, including trails, visitor centers, and sightseeing spots, etc., would also affect that would also result in improvement of services. Anybody else would like to add to capacity building issues? I know that Kazakh Tourism launched an online school for domestic tourism, which accepts everyone and can train anyone using different modules. And just to support what you said, and to echo what you said, and this is where they provide very subject matter areas, including guide training and hoteliers and guide campaigns, etc. Thank you for reminding me. 3 out of 6 panelists were speakers in this online academy. I forgot to mention that. Yeah. And I would like to add that large hotels are they train their own staff themselves. And I'm a graduate graduate of Intercontinental 22 years ago. This is where I started in tourism and hospitality. So that's the a workshop of staff. But people leave, people open up their own businesses, or they introduce the standards that Mislav was referring to, and they use them throughout their career, wherever they are, whatever they do.
Hotel industry perspective, especially from
Marriott perspective, in Aktau, for example, I was working very closely with Yasenov University. So it's very important that we help educational institutions to review the programs. As well, we need to be part of the solution. We are hoping to guide and work together with universities how to develop the new talent and the new local talent in Kazakhstan and to join the industry. So this is one thing when hotels are really getting involved. Now in Nur-Sultan we are working with KazGU and many other universities as well, as they're opening the doors to go offline, where we are trying to get a new group of people and try to make them exciting about the hospitality, but as well working on new programs and how we can maybe evaluate them and have them even longer in the industry to develop their skills. Second is marketing, and this is opportunity for me to work with some marketing colleagues around. Obviously, the new generation of employees entering now is very different, especially with borders being closed. In most of the countries, we are being focused on the local talents. So how do you approach them? How we can successfully market to them the opportunities in hospitality? It is very different than what we used to do and think before. So this is something where hotels are really focused on. And lastly, obviously, it's financial packages. Obviously, this is something that we are, as everywhere, there's a pressure on labor and the pressure on salaries. Obviously, that's not the least important, but very important part of our business to review how we can proceed with that as well. So from our perspective, this is something that we're looking at these free opportunities, how to address the labor shortage today and for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mislav, very much. So I think we've answered this question as much as we could. And one more question from Azim Yegemberdiev. It's the question to Gulmira, but I think that we all can try and answer it, even though we only have 4 minutes left. It's a very interesting presentation. Does your DMO, destination, the valley destination, Zergolan Valley destination, does it work with tour operators from Central Asia? Do you provide combined tours prepared in a partnership with tour operators from Central Asia? The reason I picked this question is because when we talk about destinations like yours, it mainly is about unorganized tourism during COVID. That's a disputable question. Nobody knows an answer to it, but there are a lot of opinions that the role of a tour operator will go up again and will increase because we're used to that, to tour operators hearing that you're going to be shut down completely. You don't exist because people can do everything themselves. They can book everything themselves. But now there is an opinion that the role of tour operators will increase for some time, but then it will depend on how creative they are. Thanks to it's because people started being afraid of something. They want to have somebody who would be responsible to a certain extent in organizing their tours. So how do you work with tour operators in Central Asia and Kyrgyzstan? Do you have any experience in that? Yes. Do you prepare joint packages? That's the question. Based on our experience, that's a tour operator that provides the package and includes our services and where we provide tourism services and organizing horseback riding tours and hiking tours, and we provide guides as well. And with the Central Asian countries, we don't have that experience, but we work with large tour operators such as Nurmad, Kyrgyz Concept, Oxide Travel. These are the tour operators that provide us with guests all the time. But you said that you had more than enough. What if you find it less than enough? And of course, the tour operators from other countries are watching this this discussion. Are you willing to work with other tour operators from other countries? Of course, I am. Thank you very much. And with that, I would like to sincerely thank our panelists, and we feel I feel that they came very prepared. I feel their in-depth competency and expertise. For everyone watching us online, we're going to have another session as part of this 5-day forum. It's called Trade and Transit in Countries of Central Asia, the Existing Problems and Possible Digital Solutions. It will start at 15 o'clock sharp, Nur-Sultan time, but we have to wrap up with our session and start taking actual steps in rebooting and opening of tourism and development of tourism in our region. Thank you all very much, and goodbye. Thank you.